I have some unsettling information on the royal family of England. Prince William had spent decades learning how to bear his sorrow without showing it to the outside world. However, one secret palace document inside a restricted area at Windsor ultimately broke that grip. Only a few weeks before she passed away, Diana wrote a desperate warning about her oldest son, which was included in the file. "No one in the room was prepared to answer," William said in a whisper as he reached the last paragraph. Before we delve further into the implications for the royal family, please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any updates. After archaeologists discovered a restricted file titled The Kensington Memorandum, Music, Personal Protection of Prince William, William was called to Windsor. A memorandum is a document that keeps track of significant issues or directives. Music. The Royal Archives had kept this one sealed since 1997, the safe repository for governmental and private documents. It had not been included in any previous analysis of Diana's communications. Music. He traveled with Catherine, but she stayed outside while he read by himself. After confronting high-ranking palace officials, Diana dictated the document. She issued a clear warning: music. No one had the right to use William's love for her as a weapon during the divorce, and her son was being forced to choose between his parents in an intolerable way. William read on till the words became intimate. Diana talked of his inability to fall asleep, his anxiety over disappointing Charles, music, and how he concealed his discomfort under compliance. The prince sensed the past encircling him. Even though he thought no one understood, his mother had witnessed everything. The floor was scraped by the chair. When Catherine came in, her husband was standing next to the table with one hand on the pages. William informed her that Diana was aware of his pain. His voice then became harsh. Strong individuals had also been aware of her warning, and they had ignored it. The last page made the wound worse. Diana was afraid that if she didn't comply, a secret palace plan was being developed to paint her as emotionally unstable. However, a few names were absent. There was an unexplained gap and a broken reference due to the removal of an associated page. Charles got confirmation in private from someone else. Without saying anything, he put down his pen. Observing his face, his confidential secretary realized the most unsettling reality. The existence of the memoranda did not surprise the king. The fact that William had it astounded him. William declined to give the file back. He sought the names, the missing page, and the reason Diana's plea had been kept a secret for almost 30 years. The document had done more than just rekindle his sorrow. It allowed a young prince to persevere and made everyone affected by her last fight confront what they had shielded, hidden: music. Although Diana's name appeared on the memo, the family she left behind suffered the most. William heard a mother's voice attempting to shield him. Music. Charles witnessed the resurgence of a conflict he had worked for years to keep under control. Catherine witnessed something more perilous: a spouse being drawn back into the suffering of a childhood he had managed to avoid talking about. With the intense devotion of a son who realized too much too soon, William had loved Diana. The prince recognized her loneliness even as a young child and made an effort to console her when the stress in the household became intolerable. He felt warmth from that connection, but it also imposed a silent duty on him. He was more than just her son. He felt like her guardian at times. Music. Charles had always seen the marriage's breakdown through a different lens. The king felt that once private suffering became a public dispute, it was uncontrollable. However, that belief was called into question by the recently found memorandum, which was a formal written record of grave concerns. In those pages, Diana had not been criticizing the monarchy. She had been attempting to resolve a personal matter: William's mental safety. William sensed the betrayal intensifying. He told Catherine that the strain to stay faithful to both parents, the worry and the insomnia, must have been observed by the adults in his immediate vicinity. Nevertheless, they saw his quiet as evidence that he was managing. When the tension got too high, The future monarch recalled being urged to keep quiet. Another word for concealing suffering was duty. In a secluded study at Windsor, Catherine sat next to him without any assistance. William unfolded and folded the last page of his mother's book until the paper started to wrinkle. Music. Before it tore, the princess kindly requested him to stop. He acknowledged that Diana's remarks did not feel like a message from the past as he glanced down at them. They seemed to be a direct warning to the man he had grown into. Charles went to another place and read a copied paragraph. William was learning to conceal his pain before he knew how to deal with it, according to Diana's writing. The king requested his personal secretary to leave after closing the folder. He didn't dispute the statements. There was more guilt in his recognition of them than in any denial. Then the memo revealed something more sinister. Diana mentioned an unidentified senior official who threatened to limit Williams's access to her if she objected to upcoming palace briefings. An official or private conversation meant to influence information and choices is called a palace briefing. Her appeal was no longer only sentimental. It was proof of pressure. After reading about the finding in a documented archival report, Anne inquired music right away if the original seal had been broken. The monarch's eldest daughter, known as Princess Royal, was aware that a broken seal could indicate that someone had accessed the file before William ever saw it. Her inquiry implied that someone else had been terrified of this moment for years. William asked Charles to meet with him in private. Music. He was in perfect health. No prepared royal words, no attorneys, no courters. However, the prince had to identify the one confrontation that prompted Diana to write the memo before father and son could confront one another. Furthermore, the secret file did not start with a lawyer, an archivist, or a palace command when the palace eventually crossed the line. It all started in June 1997, following a charity reception, when Diana went into a private room expecting a standard conversation and found out that her connection with William had become a part of a royal pressure campaign. Everything was altered by a single chat. Music. She had finished dictating the note before dawn, which would be kept secret until her kid was old enough to comprehend what had been done. After the divorce, Diana was already dealing with constant attention. Her charitable endeavors kept her in regular contact with the public, and as her fame frequently overshadowed the official royal household, every appearance carried significant weight. Palace authorities were uneasy about this disparity. They were afraid that one unplanned remark from her might rekindle the family strife and undermine the authority they were fighting so hard to maintain. At the heart of that fear was William. He was going to school, getting close to puberty, and painfully realizing how hostile his parents were. Because his position was important to the monarchy, the future king was required to maintain composure. However, that expectation disregarded a straightforward reality. He was being asked to survive an adult war while still a child. After attending a reception for the London Children's Charity, Diana went into the private meeting, anticipating a standard protocol warning. A senior royal secretary, a high-ranking official who oversaw delicate palace issues, initially used cautious wording before going beyond. He warned her that Williams's private contacts with her might need to be re-evaluated for his stability if she conducted another unapproved interview or publicly questioned the household. Diana repositioned her chair. She didn't yell. Beyond that, her rage grew icy. Music. The princess told the official that William already felt he had to defend everyone around him and insisted that her son never be used as leverage again. She had heard enough, despite the secretary's attempts to downplay the threat. Later that evening, Diana made a secret call to a reliable advisor, which was captured on tape and saved in his notes. William was being taught to embrace emotional stillness as a necessary component of kingship, she acknowledged. Gradually, guilt replaced her rage. She was aware that the public dispute had affected him as well, and she was afraid he would eventually hold himself responsible for not saving either parent. Diana dictated the Kensington memo by dawn. She asked that the warning be entered into the permanent royal record, identified the official, and provided a detailed description of the threat. Music, a copy of the document was sealed. However, a handwritten archive log revealed that it had been transferred into a restricted cabinet 3 days later, using an authorization code connected to the sovereign's private office. Decades later, William examined the same log and touched the faded imprint with his finger. He questioned Anne about his grandmother's ability to approve the move. The Princess Royal paused, and her silence spoke for itself. William then saw another notation. An incident regarding access to the princes had been reported to Charles. The prince was now brought to his father's private door by the past with a document that required more than just an explanation. It required an acknowledgement. There was no official statement waiting outside the door,